So, for my final assessment as part of my music technology degree, I was tasked to make 3 pieces of music in 16-channel third-order ambisonics. A very new and unfamiliar process for me, this task posed new challenges that forced me to make music in ways I've never done before. My name is Lachlan, and in this video I will be documenting how I went from this to this. Each piece of music I wrote had a specific set of boundaries and rules I had to follow when composing. For the first piece, no non-traditional musical sound could be used, so any instruments I had, basically couldn't use it. For the second piece, I could use a mixture of both non-traditional and traditional musical sound. And for the third piece, I could basically do whatever I wanted. Now, if it isn't obvious already, headphones will be required throughout this video as I demonstrate all the binaural and ambisonics related stuff. So just have a look for this symbol on the screen and that'll let you know when to put your headphones in if you don't have any with you right now. So addressing the non-traditional musical sound thing, we spoke a lot in class about the concept of sonic objects, sounds that are free of any visual or any other recognizable attachment to the listener. Let me demonstrate this. Listen to this sound, and now listen to this one. Now, I could probably guess what image I've just put in your head with this sound over here, but probably not as easily with this one. That's the beauty of sonic objects. They can be very interpretable. You hear the sounds as they are. This ambiguous quality of each sound object I really found made the positioning, movement, and depth a lot more believable to the listener. Because your brain has no real-world example of what these sounds should be and what they should actually behave like in an environment, it certainly gave that illusion of accurate depth and all those other three-dimensional qualities a lot easier to believe. But I'm getting ahead of myself. More on this later. For the moment, I need to record some glass. There were obviously lots of non-musical sounds I could use, but I liked using this glass as I could get so much out of it. All the little melodies and rhythms I could draw from these bottles were so varied and unique, I didn't even bother mangling some of the sounds that much. So I have my sounds, time to compose. And then I realized I'm not very good at composing outside of genre. I think this is why my third piece came out as house music. So, as the blank canvas syndrome set in, I searched for a few methods to steer my creative process. I re-employed Brian Eno's and Peter Schmidt's oblique strategies, a series of cards with interpretable prompts written on them to inspire creativity. But I wanted something a little more specific, something that could almost help me generate the rhythmic, melodic, and positional qualities of the music for me. And then I discovered this Wikipedia article. Now, I do have a lot of dice. Like, a lot. So I made this chart, which gave me compositional directions depending on the results of dice rolls. Not only was I now generating rhythmic and melodic direction, but also spatial direction, the dice changing the dimension and depth of my sound objects. I even employed these methods lightly in my third piece, as I enjoyed using these methods so much. It really helped me give life and direction to those somewhat ambiguous and uncharacteristic sound objects, whether traditionally musical or non-musical. So it's pretty early in the morning. I've been composing and just trying to write stuff and put stuff on the Reaper timeline for a while now, using my dice chart, and I'm going to take it as a sign that I'm probably good to move on to the next stage of the process because I spilt coffee on it. So yeah, time to get a bit more hands-on and a little bit more direct with all the spatial manipulation. For Liminality, the non-traditional musical sound piece, I found that by the time I had plotted all my different sounds out along the timeline and given them all their positioning, these sonic objects almost already knew where and how they wanted to move.
Because my sounds had such contrasting timbral qualities, it was really easy to highlight positioning of depth and movement of all of the sonic objects, especially when juxtaposed with more steady state sounds, which only highlighted the positioning of my more rhythmic and melodic moments.
I really found that because these sounds were so abstract, I could be a lot more extreme with effects like reverb and EQ filtering to change the depth and I guess the imaging of each sound object. Because they are so ambiguous in sonic qualities, like I was saying before, their positioning and their movement in the environment tends to be a lot more believable. Coalescence used a mix of traditionally musical and non-musical sounds, most notably improvised recordings of piano melodies interpreted from various oblique strategies, as well as some leftover recordings from liminality. I really liked the idea of taking sounds with a familiar sonic quality to the human ear, a piano, and then mangling them and layering them on top of each other over and over. While they retain their familiar auditory qualities, we can tell it's a piano we're listening to because of the way it's actually sounding and the way it's been edited in the piece. It really brings on this uncanny sort of quality to it because it sounds clearly impossible to be performed by human hands.
I used lots of 10-way frequency splits in this piece, mainly of the piano recordings. I found that after I had mangled and layered up the piano, using too much movement of these sonic objects got quite messy quite quickly and masked a lot of the other components in the piece. I did like this more or less sonic soup that was happening going on, but I left lots of the splitted frequencies sitting still with maybe one or two frequency bands just slowly rotating. This was so some very subtle surround sound qualities are introduced, as your brain will sum the split frequencies together as a coherent sound anyway. I also found that because I was using less extreme movement and less high frequencies in this piece, I could really bring out and experiment a lot with the height of some of my sonic objects. The third track, Hypothesis, is definitely quite different compared to the other two pieces I've covered. While still using the oblique strategies and my dice chart, these were employed in a far lesser extent. In class, quite early on, we were exploring the phenomenon of 8D audio and all its variations. So, people taking popular music and sometimes effectively, but mostly poorly, remixing them into binaural videos to put back up on YouTube. I thought it would therefore be interesting to make something very genre bound and familiar, house music, and seeing how it translates when given the proper third order ambisonics binaural treatment.
The experience I had was interesting. For lots of the Foley and effects, like risers and filter sweeps, I really found they lend themselves quite nicely to spatial manipulation. Because of their rapidly changing timbral qualities, it meant you could really accentuate transitions by having them move from front to back or fade into the distance. But when it came to things like the drums and the bass and lots of the other, I guess, more musical sonic objects, I almost found the more I spatially manipulated them and brought out their depth and their three-dimensional qualities, it almost made the piece a lot more disorienting to listen to. While by no means perfect, the music I've written in this task demonstrates how I've learned what makes surround sound effective. Through understanding certain attachments certain sounds can have to the listener, I was able to demonstrate both moments of immersion, like in liminality, as well as disruption in moments of hypothesis. Um, I think this task as well has also given me some interesting insights into the attitudes and the trajectory of surround sound and spatial audio for listeners and the larger music industry as a whole. My name is Lachlan, and thanks for watching.